Good morning, friends. I'm not very friendly with microphones, so bear with me. Yeah. So that was all about emotional connection. It was all about recognizing that beyond the words, beyond the policies, beyond the briefs that our decision makers, that leaders, that people like us interact with on a daily basis, is the simple human connection, the simple experience. Earlier on in this conference, there was a description of, it might have even been Helena's quote that she used up here, the map is not the territory. Similarly, the way that those ambassadors are describing their reactions reminds us that there's nothing that can take the place of simple human connection and the experience of another person's world. So, yes, that's what I'm talking about. So, my name is Fergus. I'm here representing the Bertha Centre for Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Cape Town, South Africa. A incredibly dialectical, complicated, messy, but also beautiful space. And a town, a city that really is defined by its borders, its boundaries, by its boundaries of identity, of space, urban planning, and of course, justice, equality, and the lack thereof, that really is nowhere like Cape Town, at least in my experience, where I can see it and visualize it and feel it. So, clicker. That's fine. Oh, thanks. All right, so before I hit the festival space, I wanted to, again, synthesize a little bit. We started on the Thursday with Elena addressing us with prose, with poetry. And I think, like others, felt quite enwrapped, enthralled. My attention was captured. And similarly, Jorge yesterday referred to attention being really the key ingredient, the key mechanism for empathy and for connecting across borders, across identities. And throughout the workshops and the sessions, we've heard about the way that boundaries, dividing spaces, can also be hotbeds for creativity and reimagining what it means to connect and what it means to define ourselves and our own identities. So with that as the sort of backdrop here, I would like to share a little story, or at least my own experience of a story, of how festivals, public-themed celebrations, gatherings of art, of creativity, of experience, can be a kind of hotbed of creativity and a catalyst for empathy, especially in spaces like Cape Town. So, festivals, just a couple of definitions sort of that come to mind of creativity, of festivity, that I'd like to leave you with, including comments on the imagination, on creativity, and the role of fun in creating new things and new dynamics. With festivals in mind, 5 years back, I was asked to ask the question in my research at the time about the role of creativity and festivals in creative economies and Cape Town's very divided and unequal economy. What that led to was something that had a lot less to do with the economics of the situation and the questions I was asked to sort of dive into. And before I get into what festivals as borderlands I'm referring to here, just to think about what festivity, what festival means to you. So if for a moment, if you could just sort of think, feel a space or a creative experience that you might have had recently, maybe even yesterday evening, that gave you a sensation of joy, a sensation of dissolving into another person's world or another space, as well as your own embodiment, rather than your mind and your words. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about attention and empathy in festivals. And so recognizing that festivity in the way that we were starting to look at it in Cape Town, studying the role of festivals in the local economic development sort of paradigm of that space, recognizing that it's a space where people are able to break out of norms, of routines, roles that too often trap us in our sort of identities and keep us from being on the borderlands. Okay, so this particular research endeavor sort of was kicked off by World Design Capital, where Cape Town was the World Design Capital in 2014. And myself and the neighborhood I was living in was asking, well, what does live, design, transform life really mean to us? And we stumbled across this sort of idea of building a community-based festival process for organizing the new breed of leaders in our gentle seaside town, part of a very complicated and messed up Cape Town. And so World Design Capital being this sort of catalyst for a lot of people starting to think differently about their worlds. And we came up with this festival process, which was really about bringing all the different representatives of this broader space we call Muizenberg, my home, my neighborhood in Cape Town, together around a creative organizing process of where do we live, who are we, who do we live with, and how do we want to live in the future. And so over the left, there's some diagrams and pictures of us organizing, using creative means to facilitate what it means to live together, and on the right, the kind of festivity that would result at these regular festival events. Everything we did during those experimental festival organizing processes were arranged around sort of understanding the role of dreaming, of imagining, of collectivizing, and what that meant for our commons, our resources, and the way that we shared and created new possibilities. And we created a self-organizing team that tried to describe essentially what it would look like to develop a celebration-led model for local economic development. And the emphasis on celebration links back to my empathy piece. How can we create sort of prosperous cultural economies through identifying with others, identifying with our own lives? So Muizenberg Festival being an experiment in festivity and leading to all sorts of interesting dynamics and possible prototypes, including a community hub space cultural incubator called The Hive, which then became the sort of base of Muizenberg Festival and really a lot of my operations in Cape Town, a multifunctional space for workshops, galleries, and anything that anybody wanted to do. And we funded this through a membership program that drew on the experiences of the Muizenberg Festival projects. And then we looked further abroad, and we looked in the boundaries of Cape Town, and looked at all of these other emergent cultural interventions or cultural responses to tricky dilemmas and social ills. Places like Mzansi Carnival, which was a creative economy skills incubator for young people in the South Peninsula, coming together around the mythology of Cape Point. Or the Open Streets Cape Town, which is a movement that started in Colombia and is a way of engaging people in creatively taking ownership of public spaces, reimagining the world that they live in and that they see every day. Or Cape Town Carnival, which is a way of bringing and bridging all the diverse cultures and song and dance and festivity in Cape Town in one grand spectacle that was almost like a public representation of us living together, reconciling our differences on the borderlands. Or Borderlands, a literal company in the Scarborough in Cape Town that looks at the invisible lines and boundaries between spatial apartheid planning and generates these beautiful art tours and walking experiences for young people in order to reawaken imagining our sort of lived histories that stay with us today. Afrolab, an image that definitely did not decide to make it all the way here. And Philippi Village, another example of a very difficult crossroads, a variety of communities. There were a few security concerns at a multi-use entrepreneurial hub, and the committee decided to, unfortunately, build a wall, okay, in order to secure the investment that had been put into this place. And so a group of people decided to reimagine a really tricky situation by generating a narrative storytelling workshop series that ended up in a massive I think 350-meter set of stories on that wall. That wall has been transformed into a living piece of history that is not owned by the security agenda of that space, but rather the people who live and feel. Heal the Hood project, using hip-hop and the mediums of hip-hop to engage the lack of identity and the dispersed sense of, I guess, disbelonging in youth in the Cape Flats, and the way that they were able to mobilize people and new stories around celebration and hope. And so all this to say that festivals, public themed gatherings, are incredible opportunities for us to collectively make new meanings, to reorganize our organizational logics, and change the way we do things and the way we come together around common purpose. And I'm going to chip through to the most important slide, which is really thanking you for your attention. So thank you.